Please welcome to the stage Andrea Bernal of NTN 24 and our esteemed panel.
We're ready? We're ready, I think so. Thank you so much for being here today. It's a pleasure for me to be in Miami at the Concordia Summit alongside with this excellent and inspiring group of individuals, each of them responsible for contributing to the economic growth and well-being of our region. Our purpose with this diverse, you're going to see it and hear it, with this diverse panel today will be to examine the multifaceted approaches required to empower this and next generations and also underserved communities. And I would like to give a special thanks to Congressman Representative Elvira Salazar is here with us. She's going to leave in the 30 minutes, but we have the chance to talk to her with 30 minutes. Thank you, Representative. If you don't care, I'm going to start with her with some data, some important data that was an impact for me last week, I think. You have heard what is called the ninis in Latin America. They neither work or neither study, and it's the ages between 15 and 25 years old. In Latin America, for the 2021, there was a poll that CEPAL did, and we have 22 million ninis in the region. Between 15 and 25, they neither work, they don't have a study as well. Representative, you are from the Subcommittee on Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Workforce Development. What can we do about this number, and how is government in the US and in Latin America working with private sector to give 23 million ninis opportunities in our region?
Very much. I think I have to press this. Yes. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos. Y bienvenidos al distrito número 27. Welcome to district number 27. You are sitting in Coral Gables, which is the heart of the district that I represent in Congress. One out of 28 districts that belong to the state of Florida. So not only that, thank for Concordia for inviting me. I opened up my agenda to really be here at Congress nowadays. El Congreso en los últimos días ha estado bastante caliente. But thank God we pasamos Ucrania, Israel, Taiwan, y TikTok. So very happy that I was able to be one of those votes. Yo ser uno de esos votos. Para ir a tu pregunta, to go to your question, estoy hablando en español porque sé que hay mucha gente que se siente
speaking
mucho
in
más
Spanish
contento
because
en el
I
español
think
que en
that
inglés.
many people here that feels better
Yo soy el
if I
chairman
speak
del
Spanish.
subcomité de las
I
Américas,
am
the Western
the
Hemisphere Subcommittee.
Yo pertenezco al
within the
Comité
House Foreign
Occidental,
Affairs Committee,
el
dentro del Comité de
subcomité
Relaciones Exteriores de la Cámara de
occidental de la
Representantes.
Cámara de
Y
Representantes, en
soy
el
hija de
comité
cubano,
exterior
primera generación, nací
de
en esta ciudad, I was born
este
in the
comité.
city, and I think there's only few things that those 22 million people need, que es libertad, economía de mercado,
Freedom, market
igualdad de
economy,
oportunidades, buena
opportunity,
educación.
equality, and
¿Cómo
good
se logra
education.
eso?
How do you achieve
Bueno,
those things?
con gobiernos
With
que tengan el interés del
governments
pueblo
with
en su
the
corazón
people's
y no el
interest in
interés de
their
su
hearts
bolsillo.
and not
And
their
that is
pocket,
exactly
their
what we're
pocket
fighting.
interest.
En
So
particular,
that's
yo he
why we're
presentado
fighting.
una legislación que se
I
llama
have
la
presented a
legislación
legislation
América, o the
called
America's Act,
America's
para
Act
darle el incentivo a todos estos
to
países
provide
en
incentive
Centro y Suramérica
to all those countries
que
in
se
Central
unan
and South
a un
America
tratado de libre
to
comercio con
join a
México
free
y con
trade
Canadá,
agreement with
y que
Mexico
le
and
traigan a
Canada,
esos 22 millones de
and that will
latinoamericanos
bring
que
to
se
these 22
merecen
million of Latin Americans
la misma oportunidad que
the
tuve
same
yo,
opportunity that
or
I
that
had,
my constituents have by living in the United States, that same opportunity
that
through jobs and opportunities. Nuestro gran problema en la América
Our
Latina
great
es
problem in Latin
la
America
falta de
is
transparencia
the
en
lack
nuestros
of
gobiernos.
transparency in our governments.
Para decirlo de una manera elegante.
Just to
No es así cuando
say it in
yo
an
lo
elegant
digo,
way.
porque mi
It's not in
crítica
the same way I
a los
said it,
gobiernos
but
que
my
no se
criticism
comportan
to
bien
governments
con el
that
pueblo
don't behave
es
good
que
with
se merecen,
our people is that they
lo peor.
deserve the worst.
Porque esos 22 millones
Because
de los
those
que tú estás
22
hablando
million that you are referring
están
to
esperando que haya una
are
oportunidad
waiting
para
for an
cuando nazcan.
opportunity
Lo mejor que
so
en mi
that
caso
when they're
puedo
born.
hacer
So
desde
the
mi
best thing I
asiento
can
como
do from
congresista
my seat as a
es ser una voz para
congresswoman
esos 22 millones que
is to
merecen
be
lo mismo que tuve yo, que
someone for
tienen
this
el
22
resto
million
de
that
los
will
de la
transform
gran
in
mayoría de los
a
ciudadanos en
most
los Estados Unidos.
helpful
Y de la única
panorama,
manera que
and
lo
it is the
podemos
only
hacer
way that
es
we can do it
exigiendo
by
transparencia en nuestro
requesting
gobierno, para que
transparency in our
entonces eso
governments,
se
so that this will
traslade en
translate
inversiones
into
y
investments
mejor sistema de salud
and a
y
better
mejor sistema
healthcare
educativo. So
system
I just said
and
it in Spanish,
educational
I'm just gonna say it
system.
in English, and then I'm not going to take any more time. I just introduced the Americas Act, which is one of the main legislations that we're going to be considering, which is basically gives the opportunity to all of Latin America, Central and South America, to join the USMCA, which is the gold standard of trade agreements, and give the opportunity to those countries, if they behave well, if they are not corrupt, if they have transparency in the courts, if they have democracy, free market economy, and freedom for their constituents or for their population, and that way the United States is going to, and I'm going to make sure that we reward those governments by bringing the resources and las inversiones that are needed. So those 22 will be absorbed not only in the workforce, but in better schooling, better hospitals, better infrastructure for the civil society to prosper. That's the only way I think that the United States did it. Europe did it. The tigers in Asia did it. So if there's any other formula, I would like to hear it, and I'm sure I will sponsor it in Congress. Thank you for the opportunity of answering.
Thank you, Representative. Here, of course. We've heard a word that she repeated a lot and was opportunity. And I've heard someone that told me once, sometimes you only need one opportunity, but sometimes you need a second opportunity. And I'm going to go to Johana Bahamón, who's here with us. She works with a woman in jails in Colombia and also in Latin America. And if we're giving opportunities to these ninis, how do you give second opportunities to people, underserved communities that maybe some think that that second opportunity is not deserved and should be deserved in order to empower our community and our region? Johana, welcome.
Nosotros trabajamos hace 12 años en las cárceles de
12
Colombia
years ago in
y trabajamos por las
Colombia, we
oportunidades
work for better
para las personas que
opportunities
están en
for
las
those
cárceles,
people
para las
who
personas
are
que han
in
recuperado su
prisons,
libertad,
people who have
para sus
recovered their
familias
freedom, for
y
their
para los
families,
jóvenes
and for the
que
youth
están también privados de la libertad.
who have been
Y
away
trabajamos
from freedom.
por las segundas oportunidades,
And we have worked
pero
for
para
best
personas que en su
opportunities
mayoría
for
no han
people
tenido ni la primera
who, in the
oportunidad,
most part,
como lo es
haven't
esta
had the
población
first
carcelaria y postergada
opportunity
en Colombia.
because they were in
Cuando
prison.
alguien sale
So
de la cárcel,
someone
quiere
gets out of jail
rehacer su vida,
and wants to
va y busca un trabajo,
live
y
again,
lo primero que le
the
piden
first
es
thing
pasado
that they
judicial.
are requested is their
Hasta ahí llega esa persona.
judiciary
Y muchas
past.
veces no tiene otra
And many times
solución,
there is no
otra
other solution
forma de actuar
or
que
any
volver a
other
exigir,
way of
a
acting
no ser
that
que nosotros
going
como
again
sociedad
and
empecemos no
do
solo a
things that
creer en
will
las
make
segundas
him back
oportunidades,
into
sino
prison.
a crearlas
So
y a
we have to
generarlas,
create these
para que este
opportunities and
ciclo de
generate them
reincidencia
so that this
se acabe.
cycle will just
Hace 12 años
stop.
tuve la
So
oportunidad
12
de
years
ser
ago,
invitada a una
I
cárcel
had
de mi país
the opportunity
para ser jurada
to
de un
be
evento.
invited
No
in
conocía las
my
cárceles
country in one of the
físicamente,
prisons,
las conocía
and I
por medios
was
de comunicación,
invited
conocía
to
la
be
situación
part of
que
the jury.
tenían las cárceles de mi
And
país,
I
pero
haven't had the
una cosa es
opportunity
verlo
to go to these
en noticieros
prisons.
y en
One thing is to
periódicos,
see those
y otra
things
muy
in the
diferente es
news,
estar en la
and a
cárcel,
very
conocer lo
different
que
thing
realmente
is to
pasa allá adentro,
be inside
conocer la
one of
realidad
these prisons
que viven las
to
personas privadas de
see
la libertad.
really what
Y
how
desde ese
these
momento fue
people
para mí imposible ser
that have
indiferente a
no
esa
freedom
realidad.
at all
Dejé a un lado
were lived.
mi trabajo
So I left
como
my work
actriz,
aside
llevaba siendo
as
15
an
años,
actress.
actriz en Colombia,
I
lo dejé a un
had been
lado y
working
hace
as an
12
actress in
años me
Colombia
dedico
for
a
15
esto,
years,
porque creo en
and
las
I dedicated
oportunidades,
myself to
porque creo
this
que uno
area
puede estar
because
privado
I
de su
think
libertad,
that one can
pero eso no
be
significa que uno deba
without
estar
any
privado de
freedom,
su
but that
dignidad.
doesn't mean that you will not have dignity.
Y por eso la razón de nuestra fundación, Acción
That is
Interna,
the reason
y
of
de mi
our
trabajo durante los últimos
association,
12 años,
Acción
ha sido
Interna,
generar
and in the
segundas
last 12
oportunidades
years,
para
we
personas
have
que en su mayoría
really
no han
generated
tenido una
second
primera
opportunities for
oportunidad.
those who hadn't had the
Gracias,
first
Johana.
opportunity. Thank you, Johana.
Thank you. And indeed, that opens the pathways to equality and to improve our development in our region. And I want to jump to someone that gives those types of opportunities, first and second opportunities for young people around our region. Hector, thank you. With rapid technological development changing the working landscape at every minute, and an increasing rate, how can institutions like the one that you work for, Google, ensure the welfare remaining adaptive and skilled, and those types of opportunities that we're talking right today?
Andrea, thank you for that question, and thank you for having me today. You know, we've been talking a lot about opportunity, and I want to invoke a sentiment that Dr. Padron, who I'm not sure if he's in the room, but I know his presence is very much felt in here, he's shared frequently around talent being universally distributed, but opportunity is not. And that's a reality that I really think describes well the work that we tend to focus on at Google.org, which is Google's philanthropic arm, which is creating additional pathways to economic mobility and opportunity. When you layer that and view that through the lens of technology, we begin to see a couple of things. We begin to see, first of all, that the world is increasingly divided between the type of jobs that require digital skills and the type of jobs that do not. And the pool of jobs that don't require digital skills is drying up, and it's drying up fast. In fact, the World Economic Forum has some old studies. I think they're now outdated because they're a year old, which is how quickly things are evolving, but they have some studies that indicate that at least 50% of modern day workers will require new digital skills to remain competitive in an increasingly digital economy. That's why we at Google.org have been investing in solutions and that are alternate pathways. Dr. Frank and I have spoken about this in the past, and Dr. Padron and I have spoken this in the past. I think there's going to be an educational revolution that we're on the heels of. I still think and I still believe that colleges and universities have a role to play, and they are a solution for gaining digital skills and gaining pathways into upward mobility, but they cannot be the only solution to gain access to upward mobility and digital skills, which is why we've been investing heavily into employer-backed credentials. Employer-backed credentials bring both the skilled requirements that are looked for in companies like Google to help prepare people for roles in IT support and UX design and project management. At the same time, they bring the wraparound supports that are necessary to be sure that we're empowering youth and individuals to gain these jobs. These are things like educational stipends, things like mentorship and coaching, things like transportation credits, removing the impediments and the barriers that historically have kept a large portion of the population out of pathways and opportunities. Through that, we recently launched 2 years ago a $100 million fund to be able to support just that, create more sustainable financing vehicles to help provide those pathways. And through it, we're hoping to engage over 20,000 Americans, unlock over $1 billion in aggregate wage gains. And to me, those alternate pathways are an incredibly important part of the equation to help support these ninis and other individuals with pathways to upward mobility.
Thank you, Hector. The question goes straight to Julian. I don't have to do the question. Julian Esteban Rodríguez, rector de la Universidad Austral. Are we doing that?
Yes, I want to be to make a comment that is completely complementary with what Hector have just said. Clearly, we need training in digital abilities, digital knowledge, but I think that Hector talked about educational revolution. I think that this revolution needs to, and in an urgent way, education in something that I think that is more important, that's our values in our students. Yesterday and today in the morning, we talk about the great challenges of the region. Climate change, migration, security, human rights, democracy, and the drama of Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba. And the diagnosis is clear. It's clear about our challenges. But we need the will to make really a change, a real change. But changes implies sacrifice, efforts. And sacrifice implies attitudes. And attitude requires commitment to certain values. If not, nothing will change, and we could be in danger of talking a lot without any results. So I want to point to enlighten this point. Okay, for me, and of course I am saying this as educator and as a leader of university, that all of us as society, of course as educators, we have to strengthen our commitment with the education about values.
And from changes that require strength and require commitment, from ProMujer, Carmen is here, they've done a lot of commitment and changes in our society with women, and they are talking about empowering women in the economic efforts, because also more women, more democracy. And I want to hand that to Carmen from ProMujer, what changes with all of this commitment has happened in our region that can enlighten us here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrea. I think there is no doubt that actually technology has an enormous power of transformation. Actually, we have seen that AI is advancing. We have robotics transforming the productive sector. We have even organs printed in 3D. So this is amazing, but, and there is always a but, unfortunately, this transformation have also increment the inequality, especially when we thought and when we think about and around women. So the gaps in the access to technology, the use of technology, and the appropriateness of the technology are accentuating actually historical inequalities in the world, rooted in poverty, rooted basically in racial identity, and above all, in gender. So I think that the first step is to recognize the path. It's long. We have to transit that path. ProMujer is trying to leverage the use of technology. We put in place, thanks to Google.org and other partners, platforms such as Emprende ProMujer. We are giving access to the needed tools and resources that women entrepreneurs require in Latin America. We are also putting in place chatbots around health to give women access to the needed health education around also diabetes, cervical cancer, also sexual and reproductive health. So those are there in place. But what happened? That when we go to those rural communities, those communities that are not connected, we need to transform. We need to adapt these programs. We need to develop hybrid programs sometimes, because the connectivity, we have to be very well aware that in Latin America, yet today, 40% of the population living in rural areas, they don't have connectivity yet. We compare that to 71% of the population in urban areas that has connectivity. We have still a huge gap. And we have to also take into consideration that 4 out of 10 women in the region in Latin America, they are not connected at all. So we have to be very well aware of what is out there, what is happening in the ground, on the ground, basically, and actually adapt what is the technology that we have available and try to deploy the programs in a way that doesn't leave anybody behind, especially women.
Thank you, Carmen. The problem of connectivity in our continent, because we talk about technology and we talk about entrepreneur and we talk about young people and we talk about inspiring, but if we don't have the connectivity, it's like we cannot do nothing about it. And Melissa here, Melissa Medina, is the expert on connectivity as well, and she can give us a broad idea or a more idea of how from the private sector and from those ideas that she does a lot in Florida and the United States, help connectivity in our region, working with governments and public policies. Melissa.
Gracias, Andrea. Thank you, and thank you to Concordia, specifically Matthew Swift, for this opportunity. Really humbled to be up here with all of these esteemed members of this roundtable. You know, the mission of the company that I co-founded and run today is called Emerge Americas. And at the heart and soul of the work we do, which is extremely mission-driven, is to create a thriving tech and entrepreneur ecosystem in our region, right? Focused on the US and Latin America and creating bridges. But realized early on, especially being a female in the tech space, that it is very male dominated, and providing opportunities for underserved, for minority founders is something that is in our DNA through all of the components. And there's no way to do that as a private organization alone. And your question about the types of partnerships that we do, one of them, and we partnered with University of Miami, President Julio Frank, Dr. Julio Frank, who's here, came up to us and said he wanted to launch this organization called the Hemisphere Consortium. And he launched it at Emerge in 2018. And it's been incredible to see. This is a group of universities all throughout the Americas, where now Emerge is building on his mission, furthering that mission. We travel to emerging markets throughout Latin America, to universities, including Julian's University, Universidad Astral, and we provide these Latin American founders with access and opportunity to the accelerator program that we launched in partnership. Also, Google is a big partner of ours as well. It's all about connecting the dots and providing more opportunity. These founders have now been part of our program, where over the last 10 years, the founders that have gone through our program have gone on to raise over $1.5 billion. They've been acquired by large corporations. We partner with, in the government sector, Miami-Dade County. They're one of our founding partners. Miami-Dade County has a plethora of programs that is providing innovative solutions for our network. There is no way to do this alone. And I think if there is something in the nature of, you know, the Latinos in Latin America, and of course, you know, the majority of Miami is minority, and people tell me all the time, there is a willingness and a warmth to connect. And that is the center of the work that we do. And we would not be able to do that without these multiple partnerships in the public and private sector. And hopefully we'll be able to discuss a little more of these programs.
Sure, so it is possible, and that's a lie. It is possible. I don't want to let go, Congresswoman, please, if you have just a couple of ideas, 1 minute, just to, from what you've heard, a conclusion.
Well, I think that we all agree that opportunity needs to be created, but the thing is that how do we create the opportunities? And the only way, I think, is with political willingness and with the resources. And that is what, and then everything will flow from that. So specifically, I'm always thinking, how can we help Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua? Well, unfortunately, they are in the fangs of socialism and communism. That doesn't bring anything good ever. But those who have not drank the Kool-Aid, because that's the big problem, that because the other governments have done so badly, and there has not been the transparency that we deserve. The population, rightly so, has fallen into this beautiful ideology that is beautiful in theory, but it's miserable in practice. And that's what we're seeing in those 3 countries that the professor mentioned. So I go back to the United States has to have a decisive and leading role in helping the Latin American, Central and South America in not only sending their resources if it's needed, but the know-how if they want it. But it's our duty, and that's why I think through legislation is the only way I can think that we could provide that opportunity. And specifically your country, Colombia, which is one of my concerns, is sending a very strong message to Presidente Petro not to mess with the Colombian democracy. That is basically what we could do, and I think that's the focus right now. It's at the crosshairs, and we all have to be very pendiente, very vigilant of what is happening in Colombia, one of the most solid democracies in Latin America, with a fantastic economy that was on its way up, that unfortunately did not deliver. Well, the political class did not deliver what the people were expecting, and then we got Petro. Thank you. I appreciate it. I have to go.
Thank you for
Thank
that.
you, and welcome once again to District 27, the heart of the city of Miami.
An applause, please, to Congresswoman Elvira Salazar. Thank you so much. Gracias. Thank you. We're going to continue because I know a lot of here people wanted us to continue talking. We were talking about business, Richard. Is business just business? What can we do in business to really affect society and culture? Or is it just about making money?
Thank you so much, Andrea, and for gathering this amazing group of Avengers for the Americas on this table.
I know.
I think all we need on this table is a shoemaker and a silk farmer, and then we've included everybody. Yeah, you know, during the day I wear a anchor and journalist hat like you do, and what I found putting on my old Citibank hat as we lived through a very difficult time in the last 5 years, that the word inclusion became a dirty word. And before that, we were living through a time where I thought we were going to do something together. And all of a sudden, we were put on our heels. And I was looking for that which we could excite business, because business as a cultural changer is powerful. And we saw that in the last 5 years. But then things started to change. In fact, the Wall Street Journal just yesterday put out an article that said fewer and fewer Fortune 500 companies are putting and including their diversity and inclusion statistics in their annual reports. That was a headline. And so what we did is we went to the University of Michigan, go blue, sorry, University of Miami. We worked together on the idea of what can we do to excite boardrooms to think differently, to do things differently. Because the champions of inclusion were on their heels. They needed something fresh because it started to seem like the same old thing, right? Board directors, executive leaders, like, tell me something new. And so we spent 2 years. It just came out. We're launching it here, soft launching it here. You may have seen it. It's this color. Grab it. We spent 2 years on it. This is just a sample of it. It's 100 pages long. And actually, one of our researchers is from Brazil on this project. One of the numbers I just want to share with you, Andrea, is this. When you don't have an inclusive business environment, it's like a 10% revenue cut. And when you think about the number of Latino Americans that are actually considering a lawsuit, talked about or thought about it, guess what the number is? 1 in 3. If you are sitting in the boardroom, if you're leading a business, you've got to do something to be more inclusive, to reimagine what prosperity might be for the most important community of color in the United States and throughout this region. And I'm just talking about Latino and Hispanic Americans. They are the largest economic contributor. Why aren't companies addressing that group? And so this being soft launch here, we hope that executive leaders will now say, I have the tool to walk into the boardroom to say, let's talk about this again.
And the data, Richard, important, very,
Yes.
very important,
Solid
the numbers.
data, new
Yes.
data.
Because Beth, from her foundation, she talks about more inclusion, empowering, and a word that is famous nowadays, but is not being attracted like it should be, mental health from young people. And data is still not available as we should put it in our region, in Latin America. From your foundation, what have you found about that?
For that question, because to me it's so, so important. Everyone at this table, and I think a lot of you in this room, are dedicated to solving some of the biggest issues we face of our time. But what concerns me is no matter how hard we all work, there's no way we can solve everything. And the generation that's going to inherit a lot of these issues is really, really struggling. And more kids now than ever are being diagnosed with a mental health condition. Suicide among children as young as 11. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for 11-year-old kids. And it's just not something that's talked about enough. There's still a lot of stigma around mental health, but mental health impacts every single one of us. We all have a brain, so we all have mental health. And children especially are so susceptible, and we talk about technology and everyone having access to it and how critical and important that is. But again, there's not enough being talked about in terms of how technology is impacting our kids. And it's a global phenomenon. It impacts a child's brain the same way, no matter where they live or where they are. And so these are issues that I'm really passionate about solving to ensure that our next generation, A, is here and can work to have the opportunities that we did, that they survive what they're facing, which are challenges that a lot of us didn't have as kids, and that they have the tools, the resources. And science is just catching up as to how our brains function. The human brain is not fully developed until we're 25 years old. And a child's brain is extremely susceptible. Those years 0 to 7, a child's brain is like an adult's brain under hypnosis. So everything a child hears, everything that they're taking in, it's critical that we look at that with a lens, as they don't have the ability to process it as we do as adults. They don't have the resources or the life experience, or oftentimes the tools like different types of therapy to understand what they're experiencing and going through. And so they can end up walking through their entire lives with the symptoms of things that weren't their fault, things that happened to them, but hopefully don't define them if they have access to help. So that's what I'm working on, and I hope that everyone joins me in understanding what kids are going through today and how much it's impacting them. Thank you.
And thanks for that, Beth.
Yeah,
Thanks
my
for
pleasure.
that. So many communities to look for in our region, and I want to turn to migrants to talk about migration. Because I have a data also, Latin America has a record, unfortunately not a good record, on children migrating in 2023. According to UNICEF, most of the children under 11 are walking our continent and trying to get to the United States, and especially getting to New York, Camille. Thousands of migrants have arrived to New York City, and that's a challenge, especially in how you're taking care of them from the Office of the Mayor in New York, but especially how you are embracing them in terms of education. Camille.
Absolutely. So first of all, very happy to be here. Really wonderful conversation. You know, and I think most of you all will sort of know the numbers, right? So we've had, since the spring of 2022, almost 200,000 asylum seekers and migrants come into New York City. We still have approximately 65,000, and of that number, approximately 34,000 are children. And so we have the largest school district in the country. We already have over 1 million children, and we have stepped up in a big way to absorb those children into our community. Really focused on English as a second language, making sure that they have the mental health supports. It's so good that that was a part of this conversation, because they've experienced an incredible amount of trauma on their journey, and just making sure that we are embracing them. And as I meet with communities and school leaders and parents, the amount of care and attention that they have shown to absorb these children into our system has been enormous. Making sure that their healthcare needs are met, and making sure that fundamentally the family structure that are here, that we are also providing them with the care to support them. We've had great opportunities to work with corporate partners, One source of pride is that we partner with the Girl Scouts. There is a Girl Scout troop that is entirely made up of asylum seeker children, and it is absolutely incredible to observe them and see, as I've gone and spoken to them, and see as they're focused on becoming Americans and what is it like to live in this country and things to aspire to. And so we continue to do that work. We partner with faith-based organizations, nonprofits. It is very much about community. We think that that is really what's going to help our new New Yorkers, as we call them, integrate into society and providing them with those opportunities. We're very focused on work as well and creating those opportunities. We have filed over 16,000 asylum applications, 19,000 work applications, as well as 11,000 applications for temporary protected status to help folks get on their paths to making their lives here in the United States.
Camille, thank you so much, and thanks for that effort as well. Thank you. And here is someone that has given an opportunity, and it's giving opportunity also. Jamila? Jamila, that's right, Jamila. How old are you?
34.
34, and she's been in space. Yes, she's been in outer space. So I'm just going to ask. So I'm just going to ask Jamila, how do you get outer space being a woman, a young woman, and Hispanic?
Yes, it's a great question, and thank you so much for having me. You know, I think it's important to ask not only how do we get Latinas to space, but also why. So to date, 685 people have been to space. Less than 100 are women. Less than 16, or I'm one of the 16 Hispanic or Latinx people that have been to space, and only one of 4 Hispanic women. So why does that matter? It means that only 16 people who have been to space come back to their Latin communities, Latino communities, and can share what that experience was like and share something that I know to be completely and totally true. So 1 year ago, next month, I flew to space on May 25th. I flew at Mach 2.94, about 2,100 miles per hour. I was pressed firmly against my seat. And where there had been pressure, I was met in space by the complete opposite of that. I was all of a sudden light and airy and almost had an absence of self. Where there had been the roar of a rocket motor behind me, a lion's roar of a rocket motor, it was now absolutely silent, and not a normal silence, but a deafening silence. Where there had been normal thoughts, there was now this childlike wonder looking out the window, where there was space contrasted against it, and space I would not describe as a color. It isn't black, it is a depth, it is an absolute depth, and it goes on forever. And contrasted against it was what was so clearly living, and it was our home planet, and it is crystalline and blue and hyper real. And the more people that can see that, there is nothing else past that. We have the one home, and we have to be teammates to one another. So I saw that. I would like more Hispanic people to see that and really feel what it is to be un ciudadano de la tierra, lo que es sentirse un ciudadano de aquí. And so that's the why. The how is equally important. Is we need to get people into spaces where they are supported, they have access to tech, and it's so wonderful that Google is represented here. You know, I am the daughter of an immigrant. I am the great-granddaughter of an indigenous man, a Purépechan musician, and he taught himself how to speak Spanish. He did not speak Spanish, he spoke Purépecha. And he knew that that had to be the common language in order to be successful in his life. And in his life, I just have to say, he created a family band that provided every member of my family the opportunity to play music or teach music, despite gender. So las tías, los tíos, todos, los primos, todos. And I mention it because that common language is so important. And so I don't necessarily mean a spoken language. It needs to be access to technology, equal or equitable access to technology. So again, wonderful that you're here. You cannot be behind the curve because you just don't have access to the thing. We have to have that. familial support. What does the support around you look like for young women in STEM? What does that look like? You know, again, a Mexican-American household, it would have been very simple for my parents to ask me to stay home. That is very common in our culture. But they wanted me to be fearless and to travel and to see the world, and I did. And also, and I'd say the last point and how we can support people is diverse examples of possibility and belief. How do we make people feel like they have the action to be in a space? If you cannot imagine what the inside of a room looks like, there's a really good chance you will never find it because you cannot envision yourself in that space. And so just a call to action for all of these wonderful people who are here today, never discount what it is that you do. I promise you, you do not have to go to space in order to make that worthwhile. You do incredible things, and speak to young people, speak to children, because I guarantee you that you are living someone's dream.
Thank you, Jamil. Thank you.
Andrea, can I add something really quick? I just wanted to add, one, you are an inspiration, complete inspiration. I'm a mom of 5, but 3 girls, and you are a role model for them. I can't wait to share the story with them. And last but not least, Hector and I mentioned backstage, we want to be number 17 and 18 in that Latino list, okay? If there's a possibility.
We're on the list. Thank you for that. If anyone wants to jump in, because we have 19 minutes left, we still have time, but I want to close this round with Telma. She's from Concordia, and she's bringing to this table a very important initiative from Concordia, talking about Jamila, that's 30 years old, and a lot of young people that we see, our kids, and to have more voices, to put them on the spot, to listen to new generations. Because, for example, politicians are staying with these old generations that are voting, but no, voters, there are new voters, new generations that need to be heard and spoken, and Telma has this wonderful idea. Telma.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much. Aquí en Concordia nos tomamos muy en serio. Estamos muy conscientes de la importancia de las
Take
nuevas
very
generaciones.
seriously and are very aware of the importance of the new generations. It is not by chance that we have partners, institutions, and places as large and marvelous as the University of Miami that provides us this opportunity to meet here. We believe that the legacy we must leave to our youth and our young generations is very much related to what we have discussed here. We want to hear their voices. We want to create a platform in which the core of Concordia, that is this public-private partnership, is a political will, is economic resources, the health, the mental health, education, second opportunities. How, the challenge of digitalization, that is not that it should reach everyone, but also how it is used, this information, the challenges faced by young people about climate. Well, we want to hear all of them. We understand that Concordia is a very important platform, and we want, like in other international forums, Davos, Milcom, that they have their own young people's meeting. We want to add value to these meetings so that young people become that new generation, like between 16 and 21 years old, that really have a way to understand the world, that to those of us that are in power, those who are like the decision makers have understand. This opportunity, well, we're working on it and providing these opportunities of projects, and we might be able to launch this initiative during the World Summit in New York in September, because we want to, make you understand, everyone here, how important it is that we listen to
that
this
brings me to maybe a conclusion, and then I want to open just the table so everyone can jump in with some ideas, because this is important to bring up ideas here in Concordia. More voices, more opportunities, more resources, more public policies, but there are partners, and hay buenos socios, hay buenos socios that these people in the table have. Maybe to share some ideas and start with Johana again, and then just jump in. Which are those good partners, buenos socios, that are giving and are willing to give this first, second, third opportunities, more resources, more people, more speaking, more youngsters, Johana, and then you're free.
Creo que es muy importante en todas las cosas
very
que hemos hablado acá, lo que yo he oído,
from what I have heard here, to
el sector público,
the
el sector privado,
public
la
and private
internacional,
sector and
y la
international
funcionalidad
cooperation
en la
are
ley de segundas oportunidades,
working in a
en
synchronized fashion.
le dan beneficios tributarios y económicos a las
We,
empresas que
for
apoyan a
example, in
personas
the,
que
our
han recuperado su
organization
libertad.
provide
Creo que es un gran
support to
ejemplo,
the
pero también el
companies
apoyo de el sector privado,
in
de la
all their
cooperación
activities.
internacional. Creo que tiene que ser
I
algo en
think
donde
it's not
todas
only
las partes están
government
involucradas en una misma
support,
causa.
but
Creo
private
que es lo que está
sector
pasando
and
hoy acá en
international
esto.
cooperation
Libra
support.
Philanthropies
For example, Libra
a
Philanthropies
algunas
chose
organizaciones de
some
Colombia y la Fundación
organizations in
Internacional
Colombia,
para
and
apoyarla, y creo
Fundación
que es
Acción
un gran apoyo,
Internacional was
y por eso
selected to
estamos hoy acá.
support it, and that is why we
creo
are
que es
here
como un
today.
ejemplo de lo que tenemos
It's like
que
an example
fomentar,
of what we have to
como esas
promote,
tres entidades,
the three
esos tres
entities,
organizaciones, y también las
organizations
personas en
working
particular,
together,
cómo
and
pueden
of
apoyar
course
a que estas
individuals, how
causas
they can
que nos unen,
support these
porque las segundas
causes.
oportunidades
Because
no
second
tienen política, las segundas
opportunities
oportunidades son
should
para
not
todos.
be
Todos hemos cometido
political.
errores, todos
Everybody
hemos
should
pedido
have a
segundas
second
oportunidades, a todos nos
opportunity.
han dado
We have all
segundas
made
oportunidades.
mistakes. We have all
A la gran
asked for a
mayoría,
second chance,
no solo
and
creemos
we
en ellas,
have
sino
been
que tenemos
given
que
it.
crearlas y
And many a
fomentarlas.
times
Y
we
eso es lo
have
que
to create
Libra Philanthropies,
these
por ejemplo, en este momento está haciendo con
opportunities, and that is what
No solo
Libra
creer en
Philanthropy
ellas,
is doing
sino
with us.
crearlas.
They not only believing in
creo que
us,
es algo que decimos
but
une a todos
creating the
como
opportunities, and
ciudadanos
I
del
think
mundo.
that is
Es
what
algo
should
global,
link
las segundas
all of us
oportunidades.
as citizens of the world.
You know, one of the things that brings me so much joy about Concordia is the intersection of public-private partnerships and how much we center that in all the conversations we have. And you know, I think it's a recognition that no one industry, no one sector, not philanthropy, not the private sector, not the public sector can do any of this work alone and in isolation. So I think that, you know, to some closing remarks from my end, it's more so an invitation to challenge our collective thinking around a handful of different paradigms. You know, first of all, challenge our collective thinking around learning and education, from one-time learning to continual lifelong learning attitude and posture that's going to be required increasingly now at the rate in which technology is evolving. Carmen and I were talking about this backstage, but we were remarking on how it took human civilization 100,000 years to adopt agriculture, then a couple thousand years to get to the Industrial Revolution, then a couple hundred years to get to the technical revolution, and now what, in less than 50 years, we've unlocked the internet and artificial intelligence, and who knows what's on the horizon, right? So given the pace at which technology is evolving, we have to mentally adopt a new framework of education, of learning. And so it's an invitation to all of us. For employers, it's also an invitation to destigmatize your hiring processes, to do more skills-based hiring, right? Don't lean into just thinking that there's one profile of learner, one profile of individual that's more worthwhile or more worthy of employment or of thinking than others. And then for policymakers and for capital allocators, also a call to be thinking about how to be more catalytic in your funding vehicles, right? For us as a philanthropy, we fully acknowledge that there's less than $500 billion in philanthropic dollars put out into the ecosystem any given year. But when we benchmark against what's sitting in corporate balance sheets, we see there's over $3 trillion sitting in Fortune 500 balance sheets in the US alone. And then you benchmark that against public spending, there's nearly $7 trillion that the federal government spends any single year. So just imagine using philanthropy as a catalytic vehicle to help unlock a small percentage of return-seeking capital from the private sector, or a small percentage of public capital. That can be catalytic, that can be transformative, and that can help us create more pathways.
Thank you, Hector. Maybe Richard yeah.
You know, I think just putting on my news anchor hat for the last 20 years at CNN and now MSNBC and NBC News is, I think there's a real urgency for the Americas. And the reason is not only with international security and what that means for all of our existences, but it also means in the last 5 years what we saw of each other across borders, which is now not happening. And I think the way that we can get past that, and thanks to APCO and Lisi DeCanto and Judith Arenas for bringing together, at least me with them for these reports, is that we need to think in more, like this table in this room, in more interdisciplinary ways. Not only public-private, yes, but let's put some more detail to what public and private means working together. And I think business, for instance, academia, journalism and news, community, all of those things together working to find the solutions to reimagine this topic, education and workforce development, is the real opportunity, I think, in front of us, because the door is closing. It was a big opening after that difficult time we all lived through together. And this is just me as an observer, right, telling the stories that unfortunately hurt all of our hearts and our minds. And so I'm really glad that we can come together, you know, with these different ideas about how to keep the door open.
Julian.
Thanks. I want to share a project, very concrete, that is, I think that is a way to maybe to inspire. It's a project led by my university with the help, the funding of IDB, the help of Hugh. Melissa talked about that with other universities, Miami, of course, and is WISE, Women in Entrepreneurship, in STEM entrepreneurship, focus on training women in entrepreneurial skills, especially in STEM, and a great success based on networking, and clearly the collaboration of Hugh helps a lot to accelerate, to scale the program with a speed that we didn't imagine. Nowadays, we are working in 5 countries of South America, and since this year, we will incorporate Central America, and we have more than 13,000 women engaged with the program. And there were more than 500 projects that were generated by the program. One of them was the finalist of Emerge America contest, the only woman that reached the final. So networking and collaboration and being ambitious.
Thank you. Maybe Carmen, yes?
Yes, of course, I couldn't agree more. And basically, I think we need more role models, as it was stated. I think that we need to showcase these cases much more. We have to be very open in the storytelling of what we can achieve. Basically, I also agree that we need to be working in partnerships with others. That is incorporating also different perspectives. If we want to develop sustainable solutions, we need to be working with the private sector, public sector, local governments. We need to be working with other NGOs. We are not going to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to spend neither money, neither time on that. Other organizations could be doing the same type of work that we envision, so we should partner with them. We should actually be much more efficient in that regard if we want to advance much faster.
Thank you, Carmen. We have some questions that maybe in a QR and you can vote for. We have a survey here. How can communities better support underserved population in accessing educational and workforce opportunities? And we have a 50-50, creating affordable housing and living policies and investing money in grants, scholarships, and long-term financial models. So we have 3 questions there, interesting, that maybe you want to help us vote for, and then we can discuss it here in the table before we finish. We have 6 minutes. Someone else? Go ahead.
No, directly to that point, there's a couple programs here in South Florida that address those subjects directly. One is a private-public partnership led by Miami-Dade County, also in partnership with the Miami Foundation and several other family foundations and private donors, called Miami Connected. And it's a big, ambitious goal, which is to make South Florida the most connected region in the United States, specifically for the underserved communities. And so they're bringing, I think to your point, Carmen, how in Latin America you said 40%, if I'm not mistaken, are not connected. Well, there are similar numbers in the underserved communities. And so Miami Connected is bringing connectivity directly to those homes. And we're seeing already in the last couple of years the fruits of that labor. So that's one. And then there's another one that was led by the previous superintendent, Carvalho, here in Miami, which is called Future Bonds Miami, if I'm not mistaken, is the name. But essentially, they are providing a savings account for every single child. I believe they're beginning at kindergarten in the public schools, and they're seeding it, I believe it's with $50, for it to accrue over time, and specifically for those funds to be geared towards education of future generations. And I think these are gonna have a positive snowball multiplier effect that we're gonna see deep-rooted through our community. And I think maybe creating parallel programs like that in other underserved areas, perhaps throughout Latin America, we can talk through it. But super, super important, and something that we're involved in as an organization as well.
Thank you, Melissa. Very interesting what is happening with the questions. Which aspect, that's the third question, which aspect of workforce development do you believe requires the most innovation and investment? Number 1, technical skills training. Soft skills training, number 2. Diversity and inclusion programs. Career guidance to support professional development. Thanks for voting here and having these questions as well. So we have the problem, we have a diagnose, and I'm still maybe missing, and maybe to Camille, I bring it back to her, awareness. Talking about migrants as well and underserved communities also, awareness. Because it's not only their problem, it's our problem.
Yeah, I think I like to reframe it as it's an opportunity. It's a massive opportunity. This world is going to continue to shift for all sorts of reasons, climate, wars, et cetera, and we need to be leading. This is what we need to be focused on and leading. The educational component, really rethinking when and how we integrate education and changes in technology, and it really needs to start at the very beginning. We talked a little bit about mental health challenges, and certainly in New York, we've been very focused on the horrendous impact that social media has had on the mental health of our children, but there is so much positive technology. There are so many wonderful stories like the one that you shared about your journey that we need to be inspiring children from the very beginning so that they understand that they can absolutely accomplish anything that they want. And I think that one of the most amazing things when we interact with, again, our littlest new New Yorkers, is that all they're seeing, notwithstanding the challenge of their journey, is the opportunity that they have because they're here. I'm an immigrant myself. I certainly came to this country thinking that whatever it is that I wanted to achieve, I could, and that is actually borne out. And so it's just making sure that we continue, that those of us on the panel, those of us in the space are just continuing to drive those stories and inspire the youth.
Thank you. Telma, please.
Oh, thank you, Camille. It's just not we are inspiring them, we need them to inspire us as well. That's why the importance of the legacy of we are going to give them, that's what the importance that they give them voice, and promote this kind of platforms to let understand better, to rethink, they are the one that are going to reimagine the prosperity.
Thank you, Telma. Johana, que me pide la palabra.
Creo que es una oportunidad lo que estamos viendo
I think
hoy
that what we are seeing today
de
is an
ser una mejor
opportunity,
sociedad.
a better
Creo que es
society.
una oportunidad
It's
para
an
mostrarle a las
opportunity
generaciones que vienen por
to
debajo
show
cómo valorar más
on the generations how to
necesitar
value
menos.
more,
Y sobre todo,
and
creo que el sentido del ser
especially
humano se pierde si no se
I
hace algo por
think
los
that
demás.
is a better
Y
way
eso
to
es lo que debemos
understand
inculcar
why
a las
the human
generaciones que
being
vienen por
can
debajo de
lose
nosotros. Hacer algo por los
himself or
demás.
herself because they're not doing
Thank you,
anything
Johana.
for
I have
the
1
others.
minute, and I want to close with this question, the second question. How can educational institutions better align their curriculum with the evolving needs of the workforce to ensure graduates are prepared for the jobs of the future? 47.1% of the people that are here and vote for this, providing opportunities for experiential learning through real-world case study. And I want to stay with that, and thanks for being here, and thanks for your knowledge and y por el aprendizaje que me llevo hoy. Providing opportunities. Give an opportunity, take an opportunity. Thank you so much. And please do not go because there are going to be final remarks. They told me that, and I don't have to forget. Thank you. Thank you all.